without being able to refer to them. But I know that there is a lot of public interest in this issue and a sense of urgency, and so we have tried everything that we can to make sure that sense of urgency is felt by the FRA. Spoke to them again this morning, and needless to say, the moment that we receive any official communication that we've got that authorization from the FRA, we will make that public immediately. I know that there's also been some interest more broadly in quiet zones, because this concerns one particular area, but we've been asked about what it would take to extend quiet zones to other areas. So in the budget that we're requesting the council to pass in the month of October for the year 2018, we're going to request $120,000 for median channelization, reviewing what it would take to establish quiet zones, and continue to research what it would take to extend the area where those quiet zones can be put in place to more parts of the city. I'm happy to do my best to answer any questions, and I've also asked Jiten from the Department of Public Works to join in case any council members have any questions that get a little more technical than I'm prepared to respond to. Is there anything we can do to help get a sense, because I know that council members are hearing about this quite a bit.
Correct. I'll start with Regina and work your way down. Joe?
Sure. The supplemental measures that have been put in place that we feel will put us in compliance, total time frame that it took to institute those, and the cost, if somebody could give us a feel for that, please.
Yeah, let's see if Jiten might be able to tell us a little more in detail.
Councilmember Joe Broden, the channelization devices were installed in June, and since then we've been working with the FRA on getting the quiet zone reestablished. The cost is something I can get back to you. I don't have the exact number with me right now, but I'll make a note and I'll get back to you on the cost.
And then if I might just do one other, just follow up. Turnover by death, hiring, whatever. And I'm only asking this because we've been seeing this in a number of different areas, but sort of those active projects, that staff is working on. Is there a, in the not-for-profit world, we used to call it a tickle file. These are the things that, we don't miss when those transfers occur, within staffing or, administration. How are we going to shore that kind of process up, I guess?
Yeah. So
this is certainly consequential.
Yeah, one thing that's important to us is to make sure anytime there's a change, whether it's a lateral move, a promotion, or somebody departing the administration, that we make sure that there's a transition interview and an opportunity to get any kind of details. One thing we'll be reviewing is what else we can do to kind of document and put in writing. I do want to just clarify, I don't know factually of any indication that the turnover contributed in any way to this trains being sounded right now. What it does mean, obviously, is that we're having a harder time reconstructing some of what's happened over the years because we can't speak to one of the people who was involved.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, in terms of more of those quiet zones being on the west side of town, that has been a concern that people have addressed with me on a variety of messages. Is that the monies that you're talking about, looking at to establish more from our city limits from Mayflower all the way in to those areas? Because, and there are two different tracks over there that side, because there's a variety of tracks we have. Because of course you can't get across without passing the train over there. And so what's your thoughts regarding that? Because I believe most of that is more on the east side instead of the west side. Could you share?
That's right. The zones that we're hearing about right now are mainly on the east side, and so we're hearing from community members, and we're hearing from you and other council members the interest in making sure that there are other areas close to the tracks, including on the west side, that can get the same measures that would lead to the quiet zones. So that's what we hope to be able to develop using the line item that we're requesting in the budget for 2018.
So in the original request, was there ever any attempt, to your knowledge, to look at the west side quiet zones at all? Or were they just not there at the beginning, or what was the establishment or why it was only on the east side? Do you have any idea?
That, not having been present for the 2005 conversation, it's difficult for me to understand which areas were prioritized and why. What I will say is that this is an issue that we're talking about now, but I know that Council President Scott and you and others have brought it up over the years. And so we know that there's interest in extending it and making it available in more parts of the city. And that's what we'll have in mind moving forward.
Okay, I appreciate your concern. Thank you.
Mr. Forty? Mr. Furley? And Mayor, I'll probably put you on the spot a little bit, but I'm remiss, I dropped the ball on this in 2013, you and I talked about it, but I've seen all the documents in there, and yes, it seems, looking at Mishawaka, they repeatedly filed their reapplications for the process. I think we did miss it on everything on the west side, but it went back even prior to 2005, I believe. We need to look at that, talking to Eric Corvath as well on the subject matter. On the west side, it is a concern. Norfolk Southern, we have Grand Trunk, and there's 16 tradings a day on Grand Trunk. There's 90 on Norfolk Southern. I think I would like to see, and I'm willing to talk to you guys, another time about upping that budget allocation, because I know it's late in the game in the budget, but that 120 isn't really going to cover on that, and the quality of life is a big issue. I would like to see something a little more concerted effort in 2018 towards improvements on at least the Norfolk Southern lines in some of those connections. So, Regina, that's pretty much in your area, Oliver's area. I hear it at my house. I'm a light sleeper though. But yeah, I would like a little further conversation on that. But I appreciate the update. It has been kind of confusing to citizens out there, and we are getting a lot of calls on it. So.
All right, there.
Would this be a 3-year reapplication? How long?
I don't know.
May I ask, so if we are, when we are approved, what will that time frame be for? Will it be 3 years and then we can expect to reapply, or is it 10, 5, what's?
I don't know the answer to that. We will find out.
Thank you.
All right.
When will we do the follow-up meeting?
Later this week, Mayor, follow up on any questions left unanswered?
Yes, we'll try to get that, yes,
Okay.
by the end of the week. And obviously, the moment we have any actual news from the FRA, we will be communicating that.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Thank you for your report.
Sorry,
Yes,
just
sir.
while I'm up here, I feel like it'd probably be a mistake if I didn't say something about the other train-related issue that's commanding a lot
Sure,
of attention
yes.
tonight, which is just that I want to acknowledge that I know that the council is going to take this up this evening in a resolution on that topic, and express the administration's commitment to working with council and working with neighbors in the Ardmore area. We take their concerns seriously, whether they live, strictly speaking, within the city limits or not, and we want to make sure that anyone who's affected by any move that's made is heard and is treated fairly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, Gavin, you gonna come down? All right. Entertain a motion for rising to the committee of the whole. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
The Committee of the Whole is now in session. This is the portion of the council meeting where the full council meets as a committee. During each ordinance read, the public will have an opportunity to speak either in favor or against. Your comments will be limited to 5 minutes per ordinance. With that, would the city clerk please read 4817? I'm sorry, could I entertain a motion to continue 4817?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. City clerk, would you please read 5317?
5317, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending the South Bend Municipal Code, Chapter 16, Article 2, Section 16-6 through 16-9 and 16-12, Article 3 at Section 1624, Article 6 at Section 1648M, Articles 8 at Section 1655 and 56, 1659B to address procedures and special rates related to trash, refusal, and other solid waste and disposal.
Is there a motion to accept the substitute?
So
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Is there a presenter, please? State your name and address. Oh, I'm sorry, is there a committee report?
The Public Works and Property Vacation Committee considered this bill earlier and gave it a favorable recommendation to full council.
Thank you. Representative.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jatin Kane. I'm Deputy Public Works Director for the City of South Bend. Offices on the 13th floor of this building. In front of you is Substitute Ordinance 5317, where we're recommending changes to the fee structure within the ordinance and some language changes. This does not impact the rates that are currently established for refuse collection and yard waste. Specifically, the changes that we're recommending are to provide relief and clarity to residents who take advantage of these services. The first change is in yard waste special pickup. Currently, if you are a participant in the city's yard waste program, you get the weekly service and you get one free yard waste pickup a month. In addition to that, if you seek additional yard waste pickup or special yard waste pickup, the current fee for that is $20 per cubic yard. We're proposing reducing that fee to $10 per cubic yard for special yard waste pickup. The second change is the change in the container replacement fee. Currently, there's a $50 container replacement fee. We have found that in many instances residents report these stolen, and so we're proposing a change where if residents are able to provide a police report of a legitimate issue where a container has been stolen, that the fee would not be charged to that resident for the first time. If there are multiple containers reported stolen, then yes, there would be a fee applied, but this provides relief for the first time a homeowner reports a container stolen. We are adding a couple of fees. Again, these are to reduce the abuse of the current program. The first is a return trip fee. The return trip fee is when a resident forgets to put their trash container out during their pickup day and wishes to have the service, city service, come and pick it up that same day, and not wait for the next cycle or the next week when trash pickup will occur. That fee would be $10. We are able to, using our Elmo system, accurately assess which cans have been picked up and which have not. So if someone does say we have a can, or I have a can outside that was not picked up by city crews, we have a way through our software to check if that's accurate or not. So this is really just for those who wish for the city to come back and pick it up. The next change is a addition of a contamination fee, and this applies to when contaminants are added to yard waste and to refuse collection, and it will be applied as follows. The first time our drivers who have a camera on the truck and can see what is being tipped from the trash cans notice contaminants in the yard waste or refuse containers, they can issue a warning to the resident and provide guidelines on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Repeat violations of that would result in a contamination fee of $10. The other general change is just making sure that the ordinance reads more clearly. The rate structure is in one table as opposed to being dispersed throughout the ordinance within paragraphs. So all of this information is in one table. The other part of the changes are really language changes. We've cleaned the language. We've removed things like the recycle program languages that are currently in the program in the ordinance, which are not necessary. We also clarified things like in the yard waste program, we asked for a fee of a certain amount for every cubic yard. What does a cubic yard mean? So we're defining a cubic yard as 10 30-gallon paper bags. So that just helps a resident identify what that cubic yard means. So the changes here are really to clean up the language, to add a couple of fees to reduce the abuse of the program, reduce fees for certain portions, but again, no change to the rate structure. I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions from council at this time?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I apologize. I wasn't there in case you covered this in committee. But I noticed it says that no owner age 65 or older of multiple properties may claim more than one senior discount. That's as it is now, that's not a change?
That's not a change, but we do sometimes find the abuse of that program. So if a owner who's allowed to get a senior discount owns multiple properties, will sometimes seek a senior discount for multiple properties, even if the residents of those properties are not seniors. So it's to prevent the abuse of that senior discount.
Is that to, I mean, you're looking at, you're assuming, or are you assuming that that's like these are rental properties?
It
Those
could
folks
be
who-
rental or it could be owner occupied, but every resident of the property has to apply for a senior discount.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other questions? Yes?
Quickly, your process for notifying folks about the contamination issues, is that at point of service, or is it a letter that's coming from the city? Is there something very quick that, what's
For now,
envisioned?
it will be a letter from the city. Our software will be able to tag contamination at an address, and then that will trigger a response from our solid waste team that will draft a letter and send it to that address along with the guidelines.
And then if you might, just briefly, because I think it's important for, when we do changes such as this that are related to fees, if you could share some of the information you shared with regards to the return trips, the stolen barrels that you shared, that you so kindly shared in committee.
So on an average, we see about 5 or so return trips a day, and we see anywhere, and the same for, this is for yard waste or for refuse collection. We also see about anywhere from 65 to 100 containers that need to be replaced a month, and that's a large number that we're trying to bring down.
Thank you.
Now, you also shared this afternoon that in the event that the city worker happens to make the mistake, you are able to track that?
Yes.
And then the homeowner or the person staying at the property will not be charged for a return trip. Is that continues to be the same?
Correct. So our software, like I said earlier, can track accurately, and if there's a mistake where our driver has accidentally not picked up, then yes, the resident will not be charged.
Do you see any kind of more situations depending on the weather? If it's raining more, snowing, ice, are you having more return trips during that kind of situation? Are you sensitive to the needs of what we related to that? How does that affect this whole situation?
We're certainly sensitive to the needs of all residents. We have our crews, certainly in heavier snow and severe weather, our primary concern is to clear the roads first, and so our pickups are usually on delayed schedule. When that happens, we try to get the information out to the media so residents are aware. Same for holidays where we have delayed pickup. But we do have times, and every resident should be aware of when their pickup is to occur, within what time frame. And so we ask that during that time frame they bring their containers out.
I thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll open up to the public. Anybody from the public wishing to speak in favor? Anyone from the public wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. Back to the council. What's your pleasure?
I move that substitute bill 3-17 is sent to the council with favorable recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Entertain a motion to rise and resolve from the committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Full council is now back in session. We'll wait on Vice President Bates.
Okay.
4817, can I have a motion to continue to 9:25?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. 5317, Ms. Fowler, would you give third reading to 5317?
5317, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending the South Bend Municipal Code at Chapter 16, Article 2, Section 16-66 through 16-9 and 16-12, Articles 3 at Section 16-24, Article 6 at Section 16-48M, Articles 8 at Section 1655-56 and 16-59B to address the procedures and special fees related to trash refusal and other solid waste collection and disposal.
Motion for passage?
Second.
Ms. Fowler, roll call.
Councilmember Preston?
Aye.
Councilmember Broughton?
Aye.
Vice President Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Vorty?
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you. We'll now move to resolutions. Resolutions, this portion of the Common Council meeting is where Common Council hears bills filed as proposed resolutions. The title of each proposed resolution is read by the clerk. A report from the committee chairperson of the standing committee from which the bill has referred to an advisory review and recommendation is then given. If the proposed resolution is requesting a zoning special exception, a report from the building department will first be given, followed by the petitioner, who's given the formal presentation at the podium. If the proposed resolution is requesting a tax abatement, a report from the city Community Investment Department will be given, followed by the petitioner giving the formal presentation at the podium. On all other proposals, or resolutions, the formal presentation by the petitioner will be given immediately after the committee chairperson's report. Following the formal presentation, council members may ask preliminary questions only, with all other council comments being heard during the council portion. During the public portion, each proposed resolution, members of the public are invited to address the Common Council. Please give your name, address, and comments on the bill. If you have any questions, they'll be addressed by the presenter during the rebuttal. Each member of the public is limited to 5 minutes, and those speaking in favor going first, followed by those in opposition, then a 5-minute rebuttal from the presenter. Please present new information, not redundant information. I will just say at this point, if there are members speaking and you're thinking they're saying exactly what you're saying, please just quietly raise your hand in support of what they're saying. Now I ask City Clerk to read the first bill.
1748, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition for the Area Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 1206 Dunham Street.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, the Zoning and Annexation Committee met this afternoon, and this one, we have no recommendation due to the fact that the presenter was not here, but I believe the presenter is here
I
now.
believe the presenter is here. Yes.
Yes, they're here. Wonderful.
Excellent. Name and address. And
Ioka Paik, Zoning and Business Services Administrator with the Building Department at 125 Lafayette, Suite 100. The special exception petition for a single two-family dwelling in a SF2 single-family, two-family district comes to you with a favorable recommendation from the Area Board of Zoning Appeals. The ABZA also approved a variance from the required 4 parking spaces to 2 for this location. The property had previously been used as a two-family dwelling, but did not meet the requirements for legal non-conforming use, having been abandoned for more than 12 months since 2004. No one spoke in remonstrance of the application at the ABZA meeting, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
any questions for presenter?
One question, please.
Ms. Broden.
How do you determine abandonment? What's the
So-
criteria?
When somebody comes to the office asking to get permitting or any information about the property, if we have reason to believe that it may not be conforming currently, so right now a single or a duplex is considered a special exception in SF2, we ask that they can apply for a certificate of legal nonconformance to verify that the property has not ceased use for since the previous ordinance, which is about 2004, 2005, for 12 months or more, and that's a requirement of that section of the zoning ordinance. That's usually the main thing that, otherwise they can prove it however they like to. We accept various forms of approval to get that certificate. This particular applicant didn't even bother with the application for certificate, just went straight to the special exception. Oh, also there was a question earlier at committee whether or not the adjacent property was owned by the same owner, and that's not the case.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the presenter? Seeing none, will the petitioner please come up and make a brief statement? Hello? Please state your name and address, and just give us a brief statement of what you're doing with the property.
My name is Royal Alvarez. I live at 1245 Echo Drive, South Bend, Indiana, 46614. I basically bought the place to fix it up so I can help my brother and my sister out for some place to stay. They live out of town, they work out of town, and it's hard for them to get back and forth to work. They all live in the same, they all work in South Bend, so right now they live in LaPorte, and it's hard for them to get back and forth. I'm truly trying to help out my family.
Excellent.
Makes sense.
I have one question. I was concerned about the changing the parking from 4 to 2, but obviously it's specific for their needs, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the petitioner? Mr. Bordy?
Do you happen to own the vacant lot next door?
No.
No. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, sir.
Okay.
Too sleep.
Thank you. We'll open up to the public now. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of 1748, please come to the podium. Anyone wishing to speak against 1748, please come to the podium. Seeing none, the public portion is closed, and I'll turn it back to the council.
Motion for adoption?
Second.
Ms. Fowler, roll call, please.
Councilmember Broden?
Aye.
Vice President Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Bordy?
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Preston?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you. Good luck. May I have a motion on 1749, please?
Motion to continue 1749?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. 1750, can I have a motion?
Motion to continue 1750?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. 1751, Ms. Fowler.
1751, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition for the Area Board of Zoning Appeals for property located at 602 Colfax.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Yes. This also did not have a recommendation due to the fact that there was not a presenter. Is the presenter now?
I actually, oh, she
This-
is here, sorry.
This
She is here.
Good. So we proceed.
Ioka Pake, Zoning and Business Services Administrator with the Building Department at 125 Lafayette, Suite 100. This special exception petition for a single-family dwelling in a mixed-use district comes to you with a favorable recommendation from the Area Board of Zoning Appeals. The ABZA also approved a variance from the required 1 parking space to none at this location. The property had been previously used as a single-family dwelling, but did not meet the requirements for legal nonconformance, having been abandoned for more than 12 months in the last 13 years. No one spoke in remonstrance of the application at the ABZA meeting, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Question, is this part of the Chapin Park Historic District?
I do not know the answer to that question, but I can do a quick search unless somebody else knows the answer.
To my knowledge, no.
No, it is not.
Okay.
I believe they've applied for several
You're right,
permits
it
in the
is
Woodland
right on
issue
that
from
side.
without the C of A, if it was.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the presenter? No, would the petitioner please come up and give a brief statement of what you're doing with the property?
My name is Deborah McAtee Jerkowski. I represent and co-own New Beginning Properties at 2387 North, 350 East, Rolling Prairie, Indiana, 46371. We purchased this home in March of this past year, intended on flipping it, improving it, and was not aware that it wasn't originally a single-family home. So we went to go get the permit to demo it, then we went to go get the permit to fix it up. At the same time, I was trying to buy both permits at the same time. They're like, you cannot have the permit to fix it up because it's a mixed use. So we then filed the paperwork and came here to be able to do that. We will fix it up. When we purchased it, it's totally demolished on the inside. The boiler did not work, there was no heat. We got the demolition permit, we have gutted the entire thing down to the studs. Waiting on the permit, be okay to be able to get permits now. The next move would be the roof and the windows, then start on the inside to be able to improve it.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner tonight? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll open up to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of 1751, please come to the podium. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against 1751, please come to the podium. Public portion is now closed. Turn back to council.
Motion for adoption.
Second.
Ms. Fowler.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Bordy.
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick.
Aye.
Councilmember White. Councilmember Preston.
Aye.
Councilmember Broughton.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you. Would you please read 1756?
1756, a resolution by the South Bend Common Council addressing the City of South Bend Redevelopment Commission utilizing their River West TIF District of South Bend for the $25 million to help finance the double tracking of the South Shore Line with respect to people who live in the Ardmore neighborhood.
Can I entertain a motion to accept the sub?
Motion to accept the substitute.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Committee report.
Mr.
Oh, I'm
Gordon?
sorry. The Community Investment Committee met today, and we sent this forward with no recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Is there a presenter or presenters?
Yes. Oliver Davis, 6th District Councilman, address 1801 Mass Street.
Thank you.
Karen White, at-large councilwoman, and address is 1912 Malvern in the 5th District.
Thank you.
Regina Williams Preston, councilperson representing District 2, 838 North Elmer Street in District 2.
Other sponsor is Mr. John Forty. He's right there waving his hand. I appreciate his support. Over the last few weeks, I've had the privilege of meeting with several people. Mr. Richard Collins has led a nice community organization that has kept us involved for us to be more proactive. Several people were kind of caught off guard, and we believe that people need to be understood, and also for us to be upfront and to be educated about what is going on with this whole process. And so from talking with Mr. Collins, I then further talked to Dr. Dave Varner. Sorry he cannot be here tonight, but I met with him. And so after meeting with him to talk about ways we can reach out to the Redevelopment Commission, since this decision regarding the monies is coming from the Redevelopment Commission, I talked with Dr. Dave Varner and said we will form a resolution in support of giving them some guidance of recommendations of how we as a council would like to proceed. And so I would like to also thank all of the 4 sponsors who led out in helping this, and all of you all tonight at our committee meeting. We have made some changes that you all had some input, and I thank also Mr. Bob Palmer for his help regarding that standpoint. So tonight we're going to start off with reading the resolution. We have it on the board, and then we also have passed out everybody. Ms. White will start, and then Ms. Williams Preston, and then I will close.
A resolution by the South Bend Common Council addressing the City of South Bend Redevelopment Commission utilizing the River West TIF District of South Bend for the $25 million to help finance the relocation of the South Shore Line with respect to the people who live in the Ardmore neighborhood. Whereas Ardmore is an unincorporated community in Portage Township, St. Joseph County, on the northwest side of South Bend, Indiana. We've also indicated a website to support this information. And whereas the rerouting of the South Shore Line tracks will cause a great burden both financially and emotionally to the current residents of the Ardmore neighborhood. The proposed plan to move the tracks would cause a relocation of many of the long-term residents, which would bring both emotional and financial burdens, with various local reports expressing that an estimated 35 to 40 homes in the Ardmore neighborhood area would have to be acquired to accommodate a rerouting of the railroad's approach to the terminal at the South Bend International Airport. Again, the website has been given. And whereas the residents of the Ardmore neighborhood have a petition which has over 300 signatures in hopes that the South Bend organizers might take a look at the actual people living in those homes which could be affected by the rerouting of the South Shore Line tracks. Again, a website has been given. At this time,
I'd like to note that each of these paragraphs do have a reference for anyone interested in getting additional information. And whereas various city, county, and business leaders say they have a prime opportunity to change the modest population growth in our area, which has grown for each of the past 4 years, but has trailed the state of Indiana's growth rate by double-tracking part of the South Shore Line, which would eliminate the need for passenger line to wait for oncoming freight trains, and realigning the South Shore's approach to South Bend International Airport. And whereas South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg shared that the city of South Bend would tap its River West TIF district for the $25 million to help finance the double-tracking part of the South Shore Line, which would eliminate the need for the passenger line to wait for oncoming freight trains, and realigning the South Shore's approach to South Bend International Airport. The city of South Bend would try later to get the money reimbursed from federal sources. And whereas South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg, when asked whether reducing the trip by 10 minutes is worth $25 million, expressed, "The answer is in the economic impact. We're talking about a game changer for economic growth. It's hard to think of something that would have a bigger potential bang for the buck than something like this," he said. "We recognize it's not a small commitment, especially for the county with some of the pressure it's under fiscally, but we also see the return on investment that could make it one of the best bets we've ever placed." And whereas it is believed that there are ways to promote the South Shore Line plans for faster transportation service between the cities of South Bend and Chicago, which is for the betterment of the residents who live in the city of South Bend as it relates to their transportation needs, and at the same time promote saving the homes in the Ardmore neighborhood, which is in keeping with the South Bend Common Council's mission statement, to make certain that our city government is always responsive to the needs of our residents and that the betterment of South Bend is always our highest priority.
Whereas, being sensitive to the residents of the Ardmore neighborhood and to assure fair compensation and assistance as outlined in the Federal Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition for Federal and Federal Assistance Programs, and there's the link, the following actions are respectfully being requested of the South Bend Common Council to the South Bend Redevelopment Commission for thoughtful consideration. Section 1. That the $25 million of tax funds from the River West TIF funds be solely approved with the understanding of the following specifics. Number 1, that the decision regarding the rerouting of the South Shore tracks include a rerouting plan that preserves houses in the Ardmore neighborhood area to the maximum extent feasible, as informed by more than one firm that has expertise in the areas of architecture, engineering, and surveying industry, and with the public involvement with the Ardmore neighbors who are affected by the rerouting plans. Number 2, that if any house in the Ardmore neighborhood is acquired in the rerouting of the South Shore tracks, those affected will be made financially whole as outlined in the Federal Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition for Federal and Federal Assistance Programs. There's the link there. I encourage you all to go to that link because there's some very informative information there. And third, that the city of South Bend will assure the citizens of the River West TIF district that any of the TIF funds which are used to reroute the South Shore tracks will be reimbursed to the River West TIF district to the maximum extent possible from state and or federal sources within a time frame not to exceed 5 years. Section 2. This resolution shall be enacted upon the passage of the South Bend Common Council and signed by the mayor of South Bend. I'd also like to thank Jeff Ray. He gave his comments today regarding helping us to be very clear with Section 2 here. I would like to thank our Councilwoman Joe Broden, who helped us to really crystallize the part about the federal uniform relocation assistance and real property acquisition for federal and federal assistance programs. I appreciate that link. And also I'd like to thank Dr. James Mueller. It was nice working along with, he came to talk to us about the administration and their role in this and helped us to bring this substitute bill, which showed us this afternoon and throughout this time that there was a good synergy in the room for us to really come together to make this a win-win for everyone. Pro-transit, pro-neighborhood, and it can be done. And listening to the neighbors, I really believe that we can look at different options and make sure that we can do what's outlined here in this resolution.
I just want to make a technical note. The copy that is on the screen is the original. I know plenty of copies been handed out of the substitute, so there were some verbiage changed to what was on the screen to what Mr. Vice President Davis read.
She's going to change that.
No, this should be the, this isn't the amendment? I gave
It
you
wasn't.
more
There were
a couple
things that were.
So,
but you're fine. What you read was the sub.
Does
So
everybody have a copy?
I just want to make sure there was plenty of
I
copies
gave
sent
him
out.
what you sent me to pull up.
Yes.
It's just the beginning of it. He didn't scroll
We
down.
passed out. We want to make sure everybody has it.
This should be it. He pulled up what Palmer sent us. You looked at it?
It's different,
It's different?
but it's better.
No problem. If you all can get it, look at it. Make sure
He
you
pulled
have
up
it.
what you sent us.
You made over 100.
This is it here that's, was it on the screen?
It's printed properly.
Yeah.
It's printed properly.
It's printed property.
It's printed properly.
We're good. I just want to make sure everybody has exactly
Thank you,
what
Mr. President.
Vice President Davis has read.
I want us to all be working off the same page. Same
You can
link.
scroll down.
Scroll down some, Graham. Just scroll down to where he's at so we can look at it.
To the final whereas.
To the final whereas clause.
Keep going. There.
Yeah, the link to FRA is not there. And you mentioned
The link to
5 years
FRA?
versus 3 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the hard copy is correct. Sometimes
The hard
that
copy is
happens with the technical, which is fine.
That's fine.
How did he get
Okay.
a copy?
Okay, go ahead. Again.
Any more on your presentations?
We've shared it's all here. Everybody in the audience has a copy.
That's what I told you.
This is a summary of what I tried to write down from what I gathered from the meetings. And this is all the news links that we have been able to see of those who have covered the story. And we try to put as many of the news links so you can go back to all the news links, pros, cons, everybody's comments could be included in the links. So we wanted to make sure that everybody was heard. And so right now, I'm willing to hear questions from the council.
Council, any questions? Mr. Furley? Any other members out there? You can't. You're
Okay, we'll come back later then. Thank you. We're ready.
With that, we'll open it up to the public. Anyone wishing to speak
Then we
in,
can go at our seats. I'll come back down.
anyone wishing to speak in favor of 1756, please come to the podium. State your name and address. Go ahead, you can line up. Line up, please. Name and address, please. And Gavin Furlick will time you. You each have 5 minutes, and he'll give you a 1-minute exit warning. Mr. Furlick, when you're ready, then we'll start.
Good to go.
All right.
Senator Brown, 222 East McGraw Street, City of South Bend. Have a watchdog group called Citizen United. We watch all kinds of projects from education to government. And on this, I'm a prejudice for number one. I tell you, the only problem I have with this is trying to find the original copy of where the plaque is gonna go. I wanna make sure the people that's gonna be affected by this, that it's gonna be compensated fairly. But nobody like change. We done spent over $100 million reconfiguring our city. We talking $25 million, and everybody's questioning this. But look at our city as a whole. We have invested a lot in the city of South Bend. And we are hoping with the change, it's gonna bring the economic development. We're putting up hotels, we're doing a lot. Nobody really like change. I remember when that track came right down the center of the heart of the West Side. Went all the way down by Nisco, the Downey Hill, dropped off the Chicago paper, because I delivered the Chicago paper. Came back up the hill and went out of town. Then moved it to the South Shore Station. Nobody liked that, because they said for other reasons. Then we moved the tracks to go into the airport. I hope that this time they can get it right. Because we're doing a lot of changes and a lot of here's and there. I want to engineer, I want to see the print. I want to see exactly where it comes. I want to know the people that's going to be hurt by this. It's going to be compensated for their land. Because I hope in the future that the economic development out in that area going to bring in the jobs and stuff, and we'll be able to utilize that train. I really hope this happens. And I don't like to change on Lincoln Way, but I know in the long run, something good got to come out of it, because we're going to spend a lot of money. You know, you're looking at $25 million. I'm looking at the big picture of our city. And I'm praying that people like yourself who's making these decisions going to make the right decision for the people in our community. I'm praying on it. That's why y'all elected. That's why you're in them seats. You're going to make a hard decision. Our mayor got to make hard decisions. And sometimes the average person cannot look at the big picture. When you see all these changes and says, where are we going with this? What's happening? What's going on? Why is it happening? There's somebody somewhere can see outside the box. Outside the box. Yeah, there's going to be some people upset. Some people going to be hurt. But that happens in life. Right now, we tore down how many houses? Now they're coming back and redeveloping these houses. And the only thing I ask is the group, the one-eye council people, sitting up there and supporting the people that are being affected when they come back into the inner city neighborhood. Be compensated and don't be pushed out without having a chance to have money to restore their houses so they can live there. That's all I ask. We want to be fair. So, how much time I got, Gavin?
45 seconds, Ed.
Okay, thank you. I used to be one like that, did no changes. And that's why I come to the follower office, try to get much information. I get this young man there, put me up there, so I can be informed and try to be up what's going on. And I hope everybody here do the same. If it's not fair, talk to the people that make the decision, and let's try to get it fair. Thank you, Gavin.
Thank you. Before you start, sir, if you gentlemen and ladies would like to line up along the wall on that back aisle, that's so everybody can see, that would be great. So, thank you. And if you would, please sign in with your name and address for the record. That would help. State your name and address and go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name's David Gadali. I live at 55109 Moss Road in South Bend, between Edison Road and Ardmore Trail. I've lived in Ardmore for about 21 years. I lived in South Bend for 35 years before that, my entire life. I have some copies I'd like to give to you to go along with what I'm going here. Okay. Pass this
Thank
up.
you.
Thank you. So I think the goals here are supposed to be to decrease the commute time between South Bend and Chicago by about 10 minutes in this Ardmore project. To increase safety by reducing the number of grade crossings to as few as possible. There's like, close to 20 of them now. Those are dangerous and it slows down the trip as well. Improve the lives of the people affected by this project. In the current situation, it's been reported that it takes about 12 to 16 minutes for the train to get from South Bend Airport to the Grandview Crossing, where it can increase its speed, accelerate, and off it goes at high speed to Chicago. With so many grade crossings that are unsafe, that's what's slowing it down to make this trip. So the current proposed relocation plan, which most of you know, is to move the station from the east end of the airport to the west end of the airport terminal. That's going to be very costly. They're going to have to relocate the bus terminal from the west end of the airport to somewhere else, because that's what's there now is the bus terminal. Where's the bus terminal going to go? We don't know. That's costly. They're going to have to purchase and demolish, 35-ish, give or take, houses, homes, churches, and other properties in Ardmore. That's going to be very costly. They're going to have to install brand new trackage and catenary wires, the overhead wires. It's an electric train from somewhere south of Ardmore Trail to the west end of the airport terminal building. That's costly, and it's been undetermined. Nobody knows really where it's going to go, although we all suspect it's going to go up Glen Street. They're going to have to install new signals at the grade crossings. Where are the grade crossings going to be? Are they going to have it at Ardmore Trail, at Grove Street, at Edison Road, at Lincoln Way? There's a couple small, I think Lawrence Street is in there. Are they going to close those streets? Nobody's talked about that yet. That would further dissect the whole neighborhood of Ardmore. Are they going to make those crossings quiet zones like you're doing with the east side of South Bend? Everything you've talked about is in relation to South Bend. Ardmore's not in South Bend, it's in the county. Are we going to have a train put through with 3 or 4 grade crossings, whistles all the time? I think there's 6 trains a day, maybe 7, so that's really 12 or 14 because it goes in and it goes out. I have an alternate proposal I'd like you to consider. Put the South Shore Station back where it was on Washington Street. And here's why. You won't have to acquire any properties. None. 0. NICD owns the Amtrak station. South Shore owns the Amtrak station. The original tracks are still in place. They never took them out when they moved the train out. The original South Shore tracks are still in place all the way to the Grandview Crossing. They'd have to replace the wires because they took those down. South Shore also owns undeveloped 2-acre parcel directly east of their current parking lot. It could be developed into a parking lot. We could fit 200 cars on 2 acres, no problem. There's only 100 spots at the airport right now. So that's more parking, no acquisition costs. They'd have to make a parking lot, so that would be the cost there. There would be 1 grade crossing total at Grandview. That's it. 1 grade crossing. There's going to be 8, probably more, if they put it at the west end of the airport, because they have to count every little sidewalk that has to cross. The county police has a post out there. All that has to be in. And that Grandview crossing is a high-speed crossing because the train used to go through there 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, shooting down to where at the Washington Street station, because it's a straightaway. It will only take 1.5 minutes to go from that station at Washington Street to the Grandview crossing. It's going to take 14.5 minutes off the current time of 12 to 16. It's going to take 8.5 minutes off your 10-minute proposal.
And so you have 30 seconds.
All right. So back in 2007, when the airport acquired all the land, they tore down 200 houses. They acquired 400 properties. We were sure there's going to be jobs and prosperity because businesses are clamoring for airport access. There's no businesses in 10 years. None. There's a net loss because the businesses got yanked out. You can read the rest of my comments in there. I don't want to go over a lot of time. If you want to contact me or anything, I'm in the phone book. There's my name. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, name and address.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rich Collins. I live at 55478 Moss Road. I just have a statement to give you. You can have a copy of it later if you want to. The Liberty Committee of Ardmore and I are here to stop the $26 million tax and bond funding of the South Shore Realignment Plan using tax dollars. First, the $26 million is a huge amount of tax dollars, especially from TIF funds and bonds at 4% interest. How do you replace this money? How much taxation do you think the average citizen and small business in South Bend and St. Joe County can handle anymore? Why do you think a lot of our citizens, both educated and business, leave our area? Most voters will look at all of this very negatively. I do. Secondly, what does the average citizen or small business get for this $26 million? I've done a lot of research on this. And through my research, South Bend and St. Joe County get nothing. Zero for $26 million. Zero. This tax money could be used for better projects concerning our city and county that affect all or most of our citizens. What do we really get? The destruction of Ardmore, Platte, and neighborhood, up to 60 homes. Not 40, not 35, but 60 homes was the last mention. Will be demolished. This is a lot of families that will lose their homes and neighborhood. It is what we want to do. Is this what we want to do with our money? Most of these citizens do work in South Bend. Has anyone here read or seen the 20-year strategic business plan for the South Shore? This document was filed in 2016 to the U.S. Transportation Department. From the beginning to the end of this document, South Bend and St. Joe County get nothing except a loss of 60 families, the destruction of Ardmore, and an enormous tax money lost to our citizens. If you have read this plan, you know the South Shore will need many more millions of dollars. This is not the last time. We will be forced to give tax money again for phase 2. I have to mention a direct quote from their own plan. Everything goes south. Quote, nothing goes east, unquote. This is not a message of economic boom. Coming from Chicago, only for Porter and Lake counties. But they are telling us that the South Shore will be back for their part of the money next time. Let us use our tax dollars to attack our citizens' needs here in South Bend and St. Joe County. This is how you grow, and this is how you create jobs. I can want another comment just real quick here. The average distance is 25 to 40 miles an hour for a commuter train in less than 30 minutes. On the back part of the thing here, I got some programs that would be interesting to South Bend to create. We have a terrible problem with the homeless. People have water bills that are, driving them to the poorhouse. There's a lot of things we can do, people. A lot of things we can do with that $26 billion.
You have 25 seconds.
Sir, are you for this resolution?
I'm for this resolution.
Thank you.
Okay, because it gives us an alternative. Okay?
Thank you.
But as it stands, this is the way it is. And this is the truth. Just look in the book.
You can leave that with the clerk if you would like.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, this is good looking lady here.
Thank you. Just a note to everybody speaking, we're speaking on the resolution in front of us, so please tailor your comments around the resolution that's before us tonight.
Okay.
Here, take this back.
My name is Karen Paprusek. I live at 23364 Lawrence in South Bend. This is in the Ardmore neighborhood. I had made some prepared comments, but it seems as if Some people have stolen my thunder, so I will abbreviate them. First of all, I do want to note a little bit of irony here that our mayor came earlier and addressed about the train noise problem on the east side to South Bend, and that they had to look for funds to put up barricades and conform with the transportation and railroad regulations to stop the horns. But of course, now we're going to be putting a train through Ardmore, and now we're going to get to hear the horns. Seems like we're not making any progress here. Second part to that is, of course, we do not live in the city. We do not vote for the council. It is, out of our hands, and yet we are being affected by this. So that is kind of something which is very upsetting to my neighbors and to myself. I do support the resolution, and I do appreciate the work of Ms. Williams-Preston, Mr. Gordy, Mr. Davis, and Ms. White. I very much appreciate the hard work that you've gone into for doing this. And I support this because I think that, yes, alternative solutions can be found, that we do not have to knock down 35 to 40 houses, that we can preserve the neighborhood. Just a quote from what I have written here, and I have given this to you all in an email, but basically I think that one solution besides going to Washington Street where it used to be would be to have the Sheridan Street station. But and I'm only saying this because the mayor is adamant about saving 10 minutes of time. Some people may think 25 million is not worth 10 minutes of time, in which case, if that's true, then we shouldn't even worry about this from the beginning and just keep the train station on the east side of the airport where it is. It is a nice facility. The train goes through next to the gravel pit. It goes next to the old Bendix Corporation. It really doesn't intersect with the neighborhood so much as it would going straight through our neighborhood. So I think personally it's in a pretty good spot where it is. If you put a substation on Sheridan Street, the train can stop there for just a minute, let off people, go to the airport, stay there for half an hour, however long it takes for them to kind of clean it up and do whatever they do. And for the mosey, I call them the mosey people, the people who like to mosey on the train, okay, they can get on at the airport. And then those people who have to be in a super hurry can jump on the train at Sheridan Street. Time is saved. We can brag about saving time. But this is only if it is considered necessary. This plan is cheaper. This plan does not interfere with the neighborhood, does not take homes away from people, and probably could meet the goals of all concerned parties. So I want to endorse this plan. I'm going to thank those of you who worked very hard on it, and I hope the Redevelopment Commission listens very carefully to your wording so that we can save our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Jenny Garner-Capson. I live at 55212 Sundown Road. My house and location is east of where they're going to be taking house school properties. My point is the greater impact that people are not looking at. It's not just the 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 homes that have been talked about tonight. It's all the residents. We are going to be losing our east access going east into South Bend. Road closures, rail stations, as it is with the impact of the changes done on Lincoln Way. It's taken away our routes on getting onto Lincoln Way. I now have to drive from my home all the way down to Mayflower Road in order to get onto Lincoln Way. Or I can backtrack from my house and drive down through Leidig to get on to Lincoln Way. If I want, this is impacting people, especially a lot of the older residents. If we can't get out, that also means service personnel, emergency personnel cannot get in. That means time delayed on response for fire trucks, ambulances, police. They can't get to us because we're going to be totally blocked in. Now, people have been talking about Ardmore Trail in Sheridan. There is acreage, lots of acreage there that belongs to, I believe, Westmore. Now, folks have said we can't touch that because it's a toxic dump underneath. Well, if it's a toxic dump, then we need to clean it up, and it's going to cost us a whole lot more than $25 million. We need to look at that. I think it would be a solution, not as a stopping off point, but as a main terminal. Break away from the airport. Have our main terminal there at Ardmore Trail and Sheridan. Their tracks are there. There will be no further need of tracks or overhead wires, it's done. It's a cost-saving measure. We can put a concrete top over that ground and pave over the top, huge parking areas. When double tracking eventually may get to us, it's not in the plan for us to get it. It's stopping at Michigan City. And what people aren't understanding is that $25 million isn't being used to buy properties and to make the building pretty and all that. No, that's just our part in the double tracking that's going, not even to our community. It's stopping in Michigan City. We still have about another $64 million that they're talking about that we're going to have to put in for the acquisition of land and to build a new terminal. Since we have to build a new terminal, I say we break away from the airport, put it at Ardmore Trail and Sheridan, maybe go into partnership, get some funds from Four Winds Casino, because we could put a nice big area where they can park their little vans to pick up the people coming out of Chicago to come go gamble at our beautiful new casino. Now, I lost my train of thought for a minute. Lots of ideas.
You have 1 minute.
That really clears my mind. I do support the resolution. I do want you to please take note of the impact of how it's going to impact not just the few that are going to be losing their homes, but to please look at the impact of the whole community, and saving 10 minutes for a fraction of our populace compared to the 10 minutes that we might actually use in saving a life, $25 million. It doesn't equate. Thank you.
Next, name and address.
My name is Michael Harridan. I live at 23289 Grove Street. I'm involved in this particular resolution, and I'd first like to thank all the council members. I do approve this resolution. I would like to make a note. When this resolution was drafted up, we had 300 signatures. Currently, we have over 500 signatures on the online petition, and we have over 600 signatures on paper version. So the number of people that are actually with us, supporting us in this cause, is a lot more than the little picture that was drafted inside this resolution. Some of the things that I want to bring to the attention is this isn't just about the homes and the properties. This is about the memories that were made in the Ardmore neighborhood. I welcome each and every one of you, board members, as well as all the people sitting here today. Come through the Ardmore neighborhood sometime. You will see people wave as you drive by. We are a friendly neighborhood. I don't want to see that neighborhood lost. That is the reason I support this resolution, because I don't believe those homes should be torn down. A lot of the residents in the Ardmore neighborhood, unfortunately, are elderly, which means to me they are limited income. They cannot afford to fight to keep their homes. They don't want to move. They may not be physically able of moving. So what this may be to them is a death sentence early to their grave. I don't want to see that happen. I'd like to take a moment and read some of the comments that were made on our online petition. It kind of drives my point home. Both these comments were both made by people in South Bend, and I want to keep their names anonymous. I go on to say, my childhood home with all my memories is in this neighborhood. I lived in it my entire life since the day I was born. My mother still lives in it. We can't afford to lose it. My grandmother lives right behind her. Who wants to make an elderly woman move? She lived in her home since way before I was born. My mother grew up in that house. And right down the street is my great-grandmother, who has lived there since her children were young. It's heartbreaking to even think that there's a possibility of my family members losing everything we have. I want you to notice this isn't just about the homes. Again, these are the memories that are being destroyed with the potential thought of losing the home. They are comfortable in their homes, and that's just my family. I could go on. Most of the people in our neighborhood have lived there my whole life, or a lot longer. Please help us fight this. Another person says, Ardmore is a unique little off the beaten path place that my family has called home for over 40 years. Generations of family have grown up in the odd little area that stays safe, despite growing chaos in the city of South Bend. It's one of those old-fashioned places that kids still ride bikes, and Girl Scouts can still go door-to-door selling cookies without being afraid. Not only did my sister and I grow up there, but so did my daughter. My aging parents still live there, neither of them in good health. To move them would be a terrible hardship on my family and their emotional well-being. Again, this is a small community. We call it Ardmore. It's more than just a bunch of houses. It is a series of homes, of neighbors who care about one another. We try to make our neighborhood better. The South Shore destroying it is not doing anyone justice. Regardless of the $25 million spent, if it were only $1 being spent, I would still be against that. That's why I thank you again for proposing this and bringing this to the public's attention, and hopefully we can make something different happen. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, name and address.
My name's Tim Weaver. I live at 55303 Butternut Road. I've lived there for a lot to us. That neighborhood means everything to us. If that don't mean nothing to you, then what are you sitting here for? If we don't have faith in our government, then what do we have you here for? I know we can't vote because we live in the county, but words travel. And I mean, it travels fast. And believe me, I got a big mouth. I'm sure some of you heard it out there outside. And the guys I worked with. I mean, save 10 minutes. I get up an hour now just to get up, go through all this road construction, just to get on the other side of Goshen. And I got to be at work at 4:30 in the morning. And it kind of holds me up going through all this road construction. And then you want to raise prices up on gases just to fix your roads. But why mess around with the neighborhoods? Leave it the way it is. Why reroute a train when you don't even see anybody on it? If you bring something here to South Bend, then I can understand it. But there's none here. You got your, Chicago Cubs? You got the University of Notre Dame. Not everybody's a Notre Dame fan. As you can tell. But I'm here to fight for all of our homes. It means a lot to me and my daughter. And she's wondering right now is, where are we going to live, Dad, if we lose our home? I don't know about you, but I am in the RV industry, and everybody knows how that RV goes. I was unemployed for 3 years because of it. And it drained my bank account, and now I'm in a point, now I'm trying to get back out of the bottom. And if you do this to me, it's going to make it even worse for me and for my family. That's all I have to say.
And sir, you're in favor of the resolution?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, name and address, please.
I'm in favor of it also. Dan Zanker, 5514 Melrose Avenue. I want to discuss something that no one has brought up at this, and that is, what is this world consumed of at this time? What happened 911 years ago? What happened? We all know what happened. And who's to say it ain't going to happen on this South Shore? You go on that South Shore with your backpacks, with your luggage. There's nobody checking you, nothing. You go on there freely. Something's going to happen on that South Shore someday, and then what's going to happen? You're going to shut it down. All this money's going to be put into it, and you're going to shut it down because all the crime that's been on it. We're talking Chicago. We're talking Chicago. Megan Gallagher had a show on a couple of months ago, and she talked to all the people in Chicago, 1 to 10. How dangerous is it in Chicago? They said you better make it a 12 or 13. That's how dangerous it is there. And we're bringing Chicago into South Bend. That's what we want to do. I mean, we're talking, when you're in one of those cars and somebody lets off with some guns, where are you going to go? You ain't going to go nowhere. You can't go no place. It's going to be dangerous. It's going to be shut down sooner or later because nobody's going to be able to figure out how to stop the crime on that train. And so you're just going to shut it down. You're going to destroy a neighborhood, and that's all that's going to come of this, is you're going to shut down a whole neighborhood because of the South Shore that no one's taken even any consideration in. Backpacks. Anything you want to take onto that South Shore, you can. There's no checks. How can you, in this day and age, how can you let people just go freely on a situation such as that, especially coming from Chicago? We're looking at a big, big mistake here, and you're gonna put all this money into it, and then all of a sudden, something bad's gonna happen, and you're gonna shut it down until you can figure out how we can solve it, and it's gonna cost so much money, just like at the airports, that you're just gonna say, forget it. And all these homes are gonna be lost because of it. I'm Dan Zink.
Thank you, sir. Next, name and address, please.
My name's Matthew Pisano. I live on Ardmore Trail, 23270. Where to begin? I moved down to Ardmore in 2009. I've been there obviously 8 years. And to see that they want to spend money, first let me say that I'm in favor of a resolution to this. I'm on Ardmore and Glen, so I've heard rumors that it could go through Glen, and I know that a train is not just going to make a sharp 90-degree turn. So if it's going to make a turn that's going to be wide enough, just like down on Bendix and right by Honeywell, which is where I work, then you're not just going to be taking one street. You're probably going to be taking houses along wherever the offshoot of the train tracks coming from where they are now. So I'm in favor of a resolution to save any homes on Ardmore in the neighborhood itself. Being 30 years old, I'm 31 now. I just had a son in March. I probably wouldn't stay in Ardmore forever, but there are people that live in Ardmore that aren't going to move. They've been there 20 years or all their life, and this is where they're going to stay. So I'm in favor of something to save their homes, not just mine. Not only that, I have some rhetorical questions you can answer if you want to. If this were to come through Glen or near my home and it's to be acquired, how do I know I'm going to be compensated fairly like it says in that plan? Because I owe $61,000 on my house, and all of a sudden if there's a plan to have a train come through Ardmore, then all of a sudden my property value drops, and now it's not worth 61 or 75 like I paid for it. And if I get compensated for $50,000, which I heard it could be $50,000 more than what it's worth, well, if it's worth nothing, now I'm only getting $50,000, I'm still in the hole. These are questions that I'd like to have answered sometime soon. This is the first time I've ever been in this room, so I'm still new to this. I wasn't sure why I'd be coming up here in favor, but I realize it's in favor of a resolution. So, I moved to South Bend to work at Honeywell, being originally from Lansing. So I moved into Ardmore. It was my first house, the first time I ever bought a house. But we're supposed to be trying to attract more people to work in South Bend with this new train. But you're going to be pushing out some of the people like me who moved to South Bend to work here at the get-go. So in some small ways, it's going to be counterproductive. And I know this is a county, I don't pay city taxes, but if you plan on having the $25 million reimbursed through federal means, is that not going to come from taxes that we already pay in the federal government? So one way or another, we're going to be paying for it. So I don't have a lot to say. I just showed up here to say this off the top of my head, and I've never met any of you before except for Oliver. And like I said, I have mixed feelings on it. If I feel like I'm going to be treated fairly, it'd be a different story. But somehow, I don't feel like that's probably going to be what is going to happen. I went through the lockout at Honeywell. I was locked out for 10 months. People's definition of fair changes, but I hope that you guys can come up with something than taking down houses in Ardmore, because, they got elevated trains in Chicago. Why not elevate the trains? Why not, like someone else said earlier, take a different route before Ardmore, further west? You won't have to take any houses, and you can still elevate it for any reason so that traffic get through the highway, whatever. Or I know it probably won't be going underground because I have well water, and I don't see how that would work, but I just hope that, that you guys are the deciding factor whether or not this is happening. This is something that South Shore wants to happen. So I wish I could speak to them, but, the little bit of money I pay in taxes isn't going to sway their decisions. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, name and address.
Marty Wolfson, 809 Park Avenue, South Bend. I support the resolution. I think it's important for the council to make its views known to the redevelopment commission, which has a deciding voice in this matter. And I won't repeat the very powerful testimony of the people who spoke before me about the loss of the homes and what it means to them and their community. I do want to point out, however, that there has not been, as I understand it, any economic study to document what have been claimed to be the economic benefits of reducing the commute time from South Bend to Chicago by 9 minutes. And I think it's very questionable to spend $25 million, displace many families to save 9 minutes when it's not clear what it's really going to do to benefit us, especially when there are so many unmet and important and pressing needs in South Bend that I'm sure we could all think of how to spend $25 million on. So I would urge the council to pass this resolution. I would urge the council to suggest to the redevelopment commission that where it says preserves houses in the Ardmore neighborhood area to the maximum extent feasible, I would suggest that that be interpreted to mean no houses are destroyed and no people are displaced with the South Shore rerouting. And I think we need to be conscious of the idea that we want development, but we want development without displacement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next name and address.
Michael Kramer, 24296 Edison Road, South Bend, 46628. My home lies about a quarter block away from where the bypass crosses over Edison Road. And I can hear the train as it crosses Lincoln Way West, going right to its airport, saying, as remarking how loud that horn really is. And that's the main thing that really scares me, is if they move it closer. You know, I take naps in the afternoon. You know, my schedule varies. Sometimes I'm sleeping and I'm going to be woken up by the train. I don't mind it. I don't see it as a logical alternative to cut through a bunch of residential homes and change the whole Honor Park, the bus terminal, all that money spent just to make a few economic dollars work for some jobs and you know, some changes which keep pace with the rest of the state, which I think we're already ahead of the rest of the state with the tower being refurbished, with the Cubs making the ballpark really, you know, stand out. And there's a lot of good things going on in our town. I think a lot of people love the South Shore. And I think that what they decided over 20 years ago to take that spur and run it along the Kirk Concrete area was really bad for those people, but it didn't really affect us much. So I feel bad for them, but I think they're used to it now. The double tracks where the train, I haven't seen the South Shore ever have to stop for a freight train. Their tracks are from here to me apart from each other. What else? I'm getting lost. Okay. But anyway, I think I said it all quickly, too fast. Good. The horns, we love the South Shore. I think it's a good location, the way it goes around. If it's too close to the freight trains, maybe we can put a little spur where it's a double track away from these freight trains and they can make that work somehow. But cutting across Lincoln Way and those homes and getting closer to my house and cutting down property values, because who's going to want to buy the house when it's so noisy, that clanky-clank train, which is very good, you know, it brings in a lot of folks. But I don't know. It's a lot of money, but money grows on, you know, ambition. What else could I say? I think it's just a better idea to stick with the tracks they have. Make it work. It's nice, it's pleasant. Everybody's seeming to benefit a little bit. We can wait. We don't have to be in a great big hurry. I'm gonna forget half the things that are important. I think that the residents where they signed the petition is up to like 1,500. I think it's way over 300. I'm making notes. Create lines, area growth or profit. Oh, and is anybody gonna really rake in some bucks and put in their pocket from this? I mean, big dollars are flowing up, off everything. Sometimes that happens a little bit. Just that the airport is really forcing a lot of changes in our area. That the planes are so loud they shake the ground for miles around, and they changed Lincoln Way and made it into the roundabout where Lincoln Way first hits, at Mayflower Road. Those cars in the morning are backed up for half a mile just to get around that little spur that nobody thought about, that runs into the red light. And they sit and wait. When people are waiting for that spur to go south, they can't go around and go in the middle because it really gets congested. Not to mention the semi trucks.
I'm sure you have 1 minute.
I just hope you consider all the options, but everyone I've talked to, mostly my father, thinks it's ludicrous to change what works. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none.
No.
Any, I'm sorry, Mr. Davis?
Come on, you didn't miss me.
Jesse Davis.
Yeah.
Jesse Davis, P.O. Box 10205, South Bend, Indiana. A lot of good points made by these people. I've come up here many times and talked about our TIF dollars and the way our TIF money is spent. Apparently, according to the resolution, you guys are at least going to get some input into these TIF dollars being spent. Those TIF dollars used to be in our general fund years ago, a whole pie of our tax money. Now we've taken 40% of that pie and turned it into TIF districts, the airport, downtown, river districts. So that 40% of the pie you guys don't have control over no more. This redevelopment commission has an open checkbook, and they freely spend it willy-nilly. So if we're going to spend 25, 26 million, whatever the actual figure is, the county is supposedly going to vote on, I was told, another 18 million on this. So we're in reality talking $42 million of our community money from St. Joe County. And then if we're going to try and get money back from the government, that's coming from us too. So we're going to pay for this twice. We already paid a lot of money to buy homes and tear them down and reroute Lincoln Way back in, I believe, 2006, in hopes that the South Shore in 2012 was going to pony up some money to reroute the South Shore. It never happened because South Shore didn't come up with their money. Now they're coming back to us again. So we want to destroy some more homes. That's never a good thing to destroy neighborhoods. This is at least an opportunity to relook at this. I'm glad that some council members worked on this. I hope the rest of the council that's here tonight will support this. Everybody said, hey, we're bringing jobs here. We're bringing commuters here. No, we're not. This has already been figured out. Look at the age of most of the people here in the audience that are telling you they're going to lose their homes. I'll bet you most of these folks don't ride the South Shore, and if you're lucky, they've rode it once or twice in their life. I rode it one time. Didn't care for it back in the 80s when I rode it to Chicago and back. This whole saving time is for one purpose, because we're building all these big, high-dollar apartments and condos in South Bend. We want people to live in them. They want young millennials to live there who are getting out of college. I don't have a problem with trying to draw the college-educated younger generation here. We need younger people here in our city. But guess what? They can't get jobs here in South Bend and afford to pay for those condos. So where are they going? They're going to take this 10-minute shorter ride on the South Shore to Chicago to work so that they can come back here and afford their apartments and condos. That's what this is all about, to fill these expensive living places that we're building. It's not benefiting the community as a whole. It's a target that our mayor has made very clear that he wants to attract young, educated millennials to our city. That's great. Let's attract them. If you're going to attract them, let's attract business to our city so they can work here. They don't have to commute to Chicago to go to work and then pay the taxes while they're working in Chicago instead of paying the taxes here. Let's bring the jobs here too. If we want to attract the workers, let's attract the business and the jobs. That would be a win-win for everybody. When those people go to Chicago and commute to go to work, a lot of them aren't going to stick around here to party. Guess what? You just shorten their ride to Chicago. They're going to head to Chicago to party. A lot of people do it already. They jump on the South Shore and go party. It's not about bringing business here to South Bend. So that little fairy tale can just be wiped away. It's about sending people and making their trip quicker so they can live in these expensive homes. You want to build the expensive homes, bring some businesses here that will support those expensive homes. That's the way to fix the problem and our economy here.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against, please come to the podium and state your name and address.
Will Smith, 728 Whitehall Drive, South Bend, Indiana, 46615. I first wanted to thank the council for drawing attention to this matter, especially Oliver. I know that you have reached out to the residents, you came to my neighborhood, and you are an exemplary public servant. I really do appreciate everything that you've done. I speak opposed to it, particularly the language that's inside of it. I would like to see the council send a message that we would like an economic impact analysis completed before the funds are committed. Everyone talks kind of about the bang for the buck and the great economics, and yet we haven't studied anything. Do we really know what benefit that's going to bring? Kind of the basic of transportation economics in that analysis is finding out if the benefits are double counted, and is it really then going to provide what we're looking for? Double track kind of seems like a double count to me. So hopefully you will take that in consideration. And I thank you for your time and your efforts.
Thank you. Public portion is now closed. I turn it back to council. Mr. Davis? Yes. Rebuttal would only be per Mr. Smith's comments.
Yeah, Mr. Smith.
And you have 5 minutes, Mr. Davis.
Thank you. Regarding Mr. Smith's comments, I have Ms. Preston, Mr. Vorty, Ms. White. I know sometimes we do our business there, but I do like his comment. Do you think that's something we need to put in a resolution? Do we need to put it in a letter along with this? What's your thoughts on that? Because we have had some discussion today that there has not been any economic study based on what you just shared. I'm cool with that. I mean, what are your thoughts? I would like to share this rebuttal with you all.
I think if there's a way to add that, I think.
Microphone?
Oh. I think if there's a way to add that, I was kind of reading through, seems like there's a place that might fit right in there with maybe the first bullet of the recommendation. We've asked for
feasibility.
Additional, in terms of the feasibility. I don't know if that would include any sort of economic impact.
You see a spot where, you're on the committee on that earlier. Do you see a spot where we can add that in there? Could you share that with Ms. Swetland? I'm a little tired.
We've got 3 bullet points of 4th bullet point, simply stating that we want the economic impact analysis completed before funds are committed.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
A little louder. Mr. Smith.
Microphone's over here. The 4th bullet point simply stating that economic impact analysis to be completed before any funds are committed. I think that would make this acceptable.
Okay, are we clear what he's talking about?
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree that an economic impact study would be, I think it's in the plan, right, to conduct that beforehand. I just don't know, right, at this point, throwing something in there, I'd be more in favor of a letter personally. But just I don't know exactly where it's going or what it's saying, so that time to review the.
Well, maybe before we go down this way, Ms. Preston, you have a spot where you could put it in there that would ease everything,
I mean, I think that actually after reading the first bullet, I think maybe it would actually require a separate bullet, like he suggested. I'd be willing to do something like that, but we'd have to do it very, we'd have to do that on the floor, like right now, if we were going,
Right now.
right?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. White, and then we come back to Mr. Froelich, if you don't mind. Let me just see what the sponsors are, then we'll come right back to your thought. Ms. White, and then Mr. Gordy. Pardon me?
I have no difficulties with it. I don't like doing things on the floor, but I have no problems with it.
I personally would like to do it in the back myself and this afternoon committee, but it's a good thought, and so I don't mind pausing for a hot second to do it. Any thoughts on that, Mr. Gordy?
Only that personally I support the economic impact study, whether it's a letter or in this resolution. I don't think matters a whole lot. I would like to see if this resolution passes that we draft a short letter to our representatives on the redevelopment commission asking them to support the majority will of the council.
Okay. All right. We've heard from any further comments from sponsors?
Ms. Broden?
I'm okay. Ms. Broden, what's your thoughts?
I would be in support of this additional bullet point. I would actually probably put it up front as your first item. And I'm not so, I guess I don't want to get bogged down in the term of a study, or to limit it to a study. I mean, if there has been analysis, and I think we heard a little bit of that from the chamber representative today, I think there's a little bit that's already known by our Department of Community Investment. So what has happened thus far to chase that, to inform this process. But then certainly I think there's an additional need, if you would, to make the case, for the economic benefit. I mean, I think we're a smart community, and that type of input into this process, I think, would be welcome. Due diligence is what I'm getting at.
I got you.
Vice President Davis, thank you. I would like comment from Dr. Mueller on this, plus also, can you just kind of quickly summarize where is NICD, the county, the state, the federal government, where are we in the entire process right now, just to kind of clarify and set where the stake is in the ground right now. And then, Vice President Davis, I think if we're going to make a motion on the floor, maybe you and Mr. Smith get together on language.
Yeah, he almost said something really nicely.
Okay. All right. You want to go that route?
Can he answer your NICD issue first?
Please.
And then come back with what you wish to last. Thank you.
Sure. Good evening, Council. James Mueller, Executive Director of Community Investment, 14th floor of this building. As part of the resolution, you cited the Federal Uniform Relocation Act, and part of that will require them to go through the National Environmental Protection Act, called NEPA. By doing this, you evaluate a number of alternatives, look at all the impacts, throw out the ones with the biggest impacts, and hone in on the alternative that has the least impacts. One alternative that's required on everything in the NEPA process is a no action alternative, so not doing it. And by doing so, that will be one alternative that's evaluated, the impacts relative to the other. So there will, most of these it's called an environmental assessment. If it's a shorter process, it's called an environmental impact statement in EIS. If it's a longer statement, if the impacts are greater. And it's kind of a misnomer to call it environmental because they look at everything from noise, human impacts, economic impacts. So this will be done as part of the requirements under the federal law. So getting to Councilman Davis's question on language, if it's restricted to no funds on construction are spent, there may be funds for design studies or other things. But if you limit it to no funds spent on construction of the line before an impact study, that would be sufficient, because it's going to get done anyway.
Do you understand what he's talking about? Are we clear with that? Because there's some things we have to have funding in order to get some understanding.
Right.
So to not have any funding to get any understanding puts us in the dark. So we have to have some funding released so we can get a better understanding is what I'm trying to, I think that's what we are trying to do. And we'll be clear. Okay.
Okay.
I would like to call upon our attorney, Mr. Bob Palmer.
Yes,
Do you have an understanding of what,
I do.
could you summarize that in a little language and share that with the audience and the council?
I would suggest a separate bullet point to the effect of that no TIF funds for construction will be committed until such time that an economic impact analysis is performed and made available to the public.
Are we all clear on that?
Is that what you're saying, James?
That's what you saying? Sure. Okay.
Is that-
Mr. Smith? You in agreement? You in agreement? You in agreement?
Vice President Davis, is
The
that?
Bears could have done this yesterday, we could have won the game. But anyway, moving forward, off subject.
Is that your amendment?
I'll move to make the amendment.
Second.
All in favor? You'll fight. You're in charge.
Thank you for allowing me to be in charge, Mr.
Okay.
Davis. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
All right, well then, I thank the administration, thank the public, I thank all of you neighbors for coming. And we will.
That's done with your rebuttal.
One last thing I think we need to do, Mr. Vorty made a statement, and I would like to just highlight that, because we already have Gavin here, Councilman, that we just have a cover letter, that we will send this. We'll work along with our clerk to make sure that the redevelopment committee has this. You already have your agenda for Monday, for Thursday, or what's the next thing?
No, it comes out tomorrow.
There's unfinished business.
So this will not be at the meeting Thursday, correct?
James doesn't know. I haven't seen the agenda comes out tomorrow.
James, when should we have this over to the redevelopment? It can get to this Thursday agenda? So probably the month, the date of the 28th? Pardon? Yeah. Okay, so we're looking at September the 20th, because they meet on Thursdays at that time, I think it's 9 o'clock?
9:30.
9:30? So let's shoot for the 28th, 9:30, so this will be presented to the redevelopment with the letter that Mr. Vorty had talked about, we have as a cover letter. Okay, Ms. Brody?
Yes, may I ask just procedurally, isn't there not a way to change that agenda by a certain number of vote? I don't know what the operating
So you
rules
say
are.
it should be presented this week?
I think you gotta give them time to get everything together.
I just
I
want to ask
personally
the
don't
question.
know. I would have to defer to the president or to Mr. Mueller. Mr. Mueller?
Yeah. We can try to make it work for this.
You can try to write. Well, Ms. Brody, Mr. Mueller, come up so we can put that on.
I just want to make sure if there is a procedure that, that we can avail ourselves of that.
Okay, could you?
Sure, we
It's just a resolution.
we have an internal draft agenda for Thursday, but we have not made public notice for that yet. So there is an opportunity to add a late addition if the council desires to have it this Thursday.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Ms. Brody. I will work on that tomorrow, then. Yes. Continue, and get that, send out everybody a copy of that. I'm done, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll turn it back to council portion. Is there any comments at this time from council members regarding this bill? Thank you all.
I will say one thing, just for fun. I just want to appreciate the spirit of cooperation that just happened here tonight. I think it's phenomenal. Thank you all. Public, city administration, council.
I will make one comment. I believe in the freedom of speech and also your right to assemble and come and speak on this. I believe, I encourage you to do the same at the county level and the NICD level. I think you guys are well organized. I think however this turns out as far as the impact, we don't know, and that's the scary part. And more information is good. Being out early in front of this is excellent, and I want to thank the council members for this discussion. So with that,
Make a motion for adoption of the amended version.
Second?
all in,
No, Ms. Fowler.
no, we need to, oh, we already accepted the amended version, did we not? All right, Ms. Fowler, roll call, please.
Councilmember Vorty,
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Preston,
Aye.
Councilmember Broughton,
Aye.
Vice President Davis,
Aye.
President Scott,
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you. Ms. Fowler, would you please give first reading to 5417?
5417, first reading on an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 333 North Kenmore Street, Councilmanic District Number 1 in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
A note before we have a motion, this was a Scribner's error. Can I entertain a motion to change this bill number to
So moved.
5817?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Now can I have a motion for the bill?
I move it be sent to Zoning and Annexation Committee and set for second reading and public hearing on 9/25.
Second.
With APC and
I
public
think,
hearing for
yeah.
1017?
Yep.
Wait, something's wrong with me.
Yes.
Area Plan Commission.
For
a motion
1017.
For 1017.
And ZNA 1023.
23,
second that.
yes.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. 5517, please.
5517, first reading on an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 212 East South Street, Councilmanic District Number 2 in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
I'd like to make a motion that this be sent to the Area Plan Commission for 1017, and then followed up by Zoning and Annexation Committee for 1023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. 5617, please.
5617, first reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, establishing a part-time police officer program for the City of South Bend and the Police Department.
I make a motion that Bill 56-17 be sent to all and Public Safety Committee meeting, set for committee meeting, second reading on 9/25.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. 5717, please.
5717, first reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving an interlocal agreement between the City of South Bend through the South Bend Human Rights Commission and the County of St. Joseph to enforce the county's human rights ordinance.
I make a motion that Bill 57-17 be sent to Community Relations, set for 9/25 for a second reading and committee meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Unfinished business, please. Can I
Motion to
entertain-
continue this until October 9th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Any new business? I'd like to thank Vice President Davis and the clerk's office and Bob Palmer for filling in last week while I was on vacation and for getting everything that went on here. Thank you for putting together an agenda. Appreciate that. Any other new business?
Mr. President?
No, sir.
No.
We had discussed, and there was interest from the council for a summary report on the homelessness task force. And I'm wondering if we could put that on agenda, or would we prefer to do a separate meeting on that? And I think a second issue was the issue of lead in our community, and
A discussion of the
a
two?
discussion, yeah. That's what I had heard at past
Yeah.
meetings, so I
With,
wanted just to follow
An
up on
update,
that
it was an
in
update.
terms of our agenda, or whether or not the context of it.
They were updates, yeah.
So both would be in health and public safety?
Right.
So Ms. Roden, do you want to try to work out with the schedule between budget?
I was supposed to have done a resolution with lead, but I kind of been way behind.
So we want to set it separate as a committee
You
meeting?
could
I'd rather
probably
have
do
a
the two.
Okay.
You have one meeting, maybe have them both.
in between.
Depends how much in time you look at.
Okay.
Only
Look at
thing I
it.
do know is that Monday,
I thought it was gonna be put on the
September
agenda,
18th,
so-
it's gonna be another budget meeting just to hear only from the public, based on all the information, all the hearings thus far.
Almost down to October now.
On the update from EDA, go back to your email, because there was some correspondence from Crystal about whether the
Okay.
other parts were ready or not. So go back to
I
your
wasn't
email.
tracking that one.
Joe, we'll coordinate that.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? New business. Privilege of the floor. Anyone wishing to speak in the public can come to the, hold on a minute, listen to the instructions, please. Anyone wishing to come and speak to the common council can do so. You have 3 minutes. You need to state your name and address. It cannot be about anything on the agenda tonight.
Have a good night.
Good night. If you want to speak about anything, come to the podium. State your name and address. Just nothing on the agenda that was on tonight. Sam Brown is a veteran. He can show you how to do it. Name and address, sir.
Samuel Brown, 222 East Dubai Street, in the city of South Bend. 1408 Elwood, in your district, Mr. Scott. I went to the director of code enforcement, Mr. Randy Wilkerson, and the developer doing his best to get funds taken care to finish that project up. And the reason I'm going on record, I want to be on record for saying this. The developer, I met him and talked to him, and I opened up today to Mr. Wilkinson and sent him an email and told him I would do anything I could to try to help speed this process along. But the citizens of South Bend cannot wait forever. So we need a time frame. And we are patient people, but it's been a long time. So let's get back together with the developer, Mr. Scott, and Mr. Wilkerson, and be fair with the gentleman also. I mean, are we talking about another half a year, 6 months? Are we talking about another 2 years? If we don't want to invoke the penalty on the gentleman, he loses everything, because he got a lot tied up in it. But being fair to the public and the citizens of South Bend, we got to have a time frame. I mean, that's fair to us. And then we're going to have to start making some action to get that stuff cleaned up, because we got too nice of a city to let that go on. So we got to get a time frame, and it's only business. And I understand you're doing the best you can to try to raise funds and do so forth, but we cannot continue to wait. Time frame. Let's get that on the books. If we do, we have to invoke the penalty. He loses everything, and then we, the taxpayers, have to come to you guys and get funds to clean that up, so when we isolate our community. Are we on the same page?
Same page.
Thank you.
Next, name and address, please.
Sue Kessel, 4022 Kennedy. First, I want to say thank you for getting my road paved. Yay. I really appreciate you keeping me on the streets list, so thank you so much. I also want to say I've really enjoyed getting to know all of you in some way, and I really appreciate all your talents and strengths. Ms. Preston is a teacher that's being a good student and learning the ropes, and I'm learning some of the things along with her. I certainly appreciate Ms. Broden's attention to detail and the homework, and she really researches an issue, and I think that's great for the people. Tim, I love what you do with technology. Thank you for including me on the website demo. I think that'll be a great addition to the city, and I'm so glad to see that. Mr. Davis, you're like the heart of the people. You really go to bat for the average citizen, and I think that's just really heartfelt, and I appreciate that. Mr. Wordy is I'm always impressed with his knowledge of history and depth of what has gone on in the city. I mean, whatever the issue, he can go back and say, well, it was this, and this. And I think that's really valuable to know how we got to this point. And I enjoy hearing that background. So thank you for that. Gavin, you're youthful and just so bright and vibrant, and you bring so much energy. and congratulations officially on your wedding. And Ms. White, you are just very even. You're great with the meetings. It's like nothing phases or flaps you. You're just so such a calming presence. And I appreciate that, and your history of knowledge on the council, and willing to work with people outside the council. And Graham does a great job keeping it all together there.
I was hoping you wouldn't say
And Ms. Fowler and all of you. I just wanted to take this time to express appreciation, because I know sometimes I get a little passionate, as you know, representing the citizens. So thank you for all you do, and I appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, name and address. Come on up. You have 3 minutes, and Gavin Furlick's time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kelly Badoon. My address is 19553 Darden Road, South Bend. I'm here today to speak about the electricity rate hike from I&M. I&M is currently petitioning for a $263 million increase in electricity revenue. They want to raise our fixed charge from $7.30 a month to $18 per month. That's before you even start using electricity. Along with increasing the rates for the kilowatt hours, the rate hike will burden the budget of this city and its most vulnerable residents well into the future. Per I&M's estimates, the average household, that's average, user will pay about $300 more a year. I&M made the decision to continue operating their super polluter Rockport coal plant, even though their own analysis proved that it is more cost effective to transition to cheap and natural gas or renewable power sources, or a combination of both was their analysis. They want to pour millions of our dollars into this dirty, obsolete, expensive coal combustion technology. The citizens of South Bend are opposing this. We will not pay unreasonable rates for dirty energy. It's time for I&M to make smarter choices. I&M should pay for its own business decisions. So I came here tonight on behalf of Indivisible Indiana Districts 2 to ask the council to join our opposition. Please attend the IURC public hearing on October 2nd at 6 p.m. in the Century Center in the recital hall, which is a small venue, and we hope to overflow it quite a bit, I hope. Please get the word out to all of your networks and constituents, and show up and speak on behalf of our citizens, and say no to I&M's rate hike. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have some materials. Do you guys want?
Hand it over to the clerk.
Deep up that on our website so we know. That'd be nice to talk to. I've never been to one of those.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, or speak in privilege of the floor? Go ahead. Name and address, sir.
Michael Kramer, 24296 Edison Road, South Bend, 46628. And I too was pleasantly surprised and pleased at how it didn't seem like it was just one-sided, already decided decisions made. And so I was happy about that. And I, of course, stuttered and think intermittently, but I knew what time this meeting was tonight. I planned around it because I made the schedule to work for me, whatever it was.
Thank you, sir. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
I'll go back and make this last change and send it on to everybody.
Okay. But look at, you have the, you have the correct one though.
Right.
I was just saying, look at that last one, because that last, if you make it from the last one you sent and the last one that Oliver sent out, that's not the updated one.
Okay.
So you make it from the
I'll make sure I have the correct one.
Perfect, thank you. If we don't get that until tomorrow, that's okay? Because I don't think we're gonna get everything processed on that tonight. I mean, if you get...
I'm just gonna go back and do
Oh,
it.
okay,
I've got to be in
okay.
Chicago tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
I'd rather get it done.
Okay.